welcome to Reaching the Rest podcast, episode 27. This podcast was inspired by a desire to get to know workers on a deeper level around the world, to hear the stories of those who have dedicated their lives to fulfilling the Great Commission. My name is Amy Clausen, and I'm the missions director at Bethel's Rock Church in Minnesota. Today, I have the privilege of sitting down with Rebecca Polley, who serves in Lithuania. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So can we just get started by having you explain a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Rebecca, as Amy said, and I serve in Lithuania. I have for the last 8 years, and I have been a part of a church planting team there that we started a church named Journey Church Vilnius, and I work as their next gen director. So I work with everyone from 0 to 35.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a fun job.
That's cool. And so have you been with the church plants this entire time? Did you start off with them, or did you kind of come into the church plants at some point along the way?
Yeah, so really I've been around since the beginning.
Okay.
There is a team that has been there for almost 9 years now. So the team leaders moved there about a year before I did, just about a year.
Yeah.
And so they were doing some of the groundwork missional living in the sense that they were building relationships and things like that.
Yeah.
And when I came in, they were finally meeting in their home with about 10 people doing church there in their home as well. So
yeah. Very cool. I want to touch back on something that you just mentioned. You mentioned that they were kind of laying the groundwork, doing missional living. Can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. So something that we talk about often, especially with teams that come and join us for a short-term trip, is the difference between being a missionary and living missionally. So clearly the Bible says that there are people that are called to be missionaries. There are people that are called to go into all the world and preach the gospel, right? But we also believe that everyone can live missionally, meaning that in everyday life, in every moment that they have, they can share the gospel of who Jesus is with anybody around them. That means if you are a mom at home with your kids, you are sharing Jesus with your kiddos. That means if you are a teacher, you are sharing Jesus with the people in that classroom or around you in a way that obviously you can. That means when you are working at the gas station, you are taking moments to meet people and know people and share Jesus with them, however that might look for you in that context. And so it's literally just living a life that shares Jesus with those around you and taking every opportunity as an opportunity to share who he is. And so, that's how we really try to live in Lithuania. We try to do that by going to the same coffee shops and meeting the same barista every day, knowing their name, being able to speak in a language that they understand. So that building that heart connection as well, right? And respecting and honoring their culture. So it's one of those things that our team is really strategic and doing on a regular basis, not just the church on a Sunday morning. So
that's so good. Do you have any stories that you can share with us about kind of what fruit has come about from living missionally? You know, has there been a connection with a barista, like you said, or with I don't know, somebody that you or a team member has met, and really you've seen the fruit of living missionally in their life?
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing because a majority of the church that we have now is because people are living missionally. A majority of the people that we see in our building on Sunday mornings are because university students have invited their friends to church or different things. But one in particular, there's a young woman that I'm discipling currently. Her name is Laura, and she was a teacher. She was a preschool teacher. And during the week, on the regular basis, her neighbor teacher would always have this really beautiful music playing, and she never knew what it was. It was just really beautiful. And she later found out that it was instrumental worship music. And she realized that because she was having a conversation and they were just talking about, oh, how was your weekend? What are you doing this weekend? All those things. And that teacher shared that she's going to church and she leads worship at church. And so for this woman, that was something that like opened her heart and her mind to even going and approaching church again, because she had come from church hurt when she was a very small child. And so it just opened a door for her to be able to walk into a church again, just simply sharing the fact that she goes to church on the weekends with your coworker. So simple. I think sometimes we overcomplicate living missionally. Only missionaries can do that. And only anybody else, the pastor, can tell people about Jesus. No, we can easily do that with anybody that we come in contact with. So
that's so good. So your, the things that that you're doing now, the things that you were doing when you first moved to Lithuania, were those things that were new to you, or did you kind of have a foundation of serving in the church or living missionally before you yourself became a missionary, before you went to the mission field? Can you kind of bring us up to the place where you, decided to leave your context and then go from, living missionally where you were at to doing that in another context and therefore being a missionary?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up very privileged. My mom was a kids pastor for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in church. I had the opportunity to know Jesus from a very young age. And so I got to watch someone very genuinely tell people about Jesus and all those things. I was a volunteer and voluntold many a time as a child growing up to serve in church and all those kinds of things. And so I did have the privilege of growing up and watching that and being a part of that. As a teenager, we began to take trips and short-term mission trips. My sister and I took our very first one as 17 and 16-year-old to Lima, Peru with about 50 other youth. And so we got to do a mission trip for the very first time and experience a different culture. And so for that, for us to see that was very eye-opening in the sense that, okay, we've grown up in church and we've known all of these things. And there's all of these people in this country that have not even had the opportunity to know him. And so for me, it was one of those eye-opening moments where I was like, oh, wow, okay, so this is really needed. You read it in stories or you have missionaries come to churches and share, and it just doesn't seem necessarily real to you. But it led to open doors in the sense that as I was preparing and as I was growing, I decided to go into elementary education as a degree. I became a teacher for 4 years. And so I worked at an international study school in a public school system here in Indianapolis. And I thought that was going to be what I did with the rest of my life. I would be able to be Jesus to the boys and girls that were in my classroom, to be around the teachers. And then on all of the breaks, spring, fall, summer, I would do short-term trips. And so my family and I, that's what we actually would do on our school breaks as teachers. We would go and actually do trainings in different countries around the world and teach them how to do kids ministry. And so we were teaching them how can you teach a Bible story and make it fun and have a fun craft to do it, or a game to go along, or a fun song to help you memorize the Bible verse or those things. And so there was a bit of training that had happened because of my childhood and things like that. But then clearly when you get to a new country in a context that you have never been, because at that point I had never been in Europe before. And I know it's sometimes hard to wrap your mind around the fact that there are a bunch of people in Europe that also don't know Jesus. But it was one of those things that was very eye-opening in a different way, because then there are obviously skills that you need that you've never used before also in a different way, because you're in a different culture. So you're going to connect with people in a different way. And so there were other skills that I did have to learn when I got to the field on how that was going to look like. I was building a children's ministry, and I had never built a children's ministry. I'd only ever been a part of one, and so it was really fascinating that way. So a lot of skills known and yet refined and then also learned as well throughout the whole process. So no expert by any means when I got there. Still not an expert.
Well, it's been 8 years, and I know that you are not still just meeting in somebody's home. So can you kind of bring us through, and I know just from experience and from talking to other pastors and missionaries that church growth and relationships with the Lord, it's not always this, completely smooth, like upwards trajectory. And so can you kind of bring us through, like, what were some of those seasons, seasons of growth or seasons of change with the church plant that got it from, meeting with those 10 people in the home to where you guys are at now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a big valley, I think you could maybe call it, was we launched Journey Church Vilnius on October 27th, 2019. So we got a building renovated, had a building, opened our doors by October 27th. That was in 2019, at the end of 2019. About 3 months later, a worldwide pandemic happened. So that you could call that a big wrench. But also at the same time, it was really amazing to see the Lord use that. So in Lithuanian culture, they're very individualistic. And because of their history with being a part of USSR until 1990, they are still very closed off in a general sense. So there are going to obviously be some that are more outgoing than others. But in a general sense, Lithuanians are very personal and to themselves and to their close people and close friends, right? Closed off. No deep conversations with anybody else, rarely having conversations about the weekend with coworkers. And so what we saw in the midst of COVID was, because we were forced to do church online, which was something that we had never even thought of, did not have the equipment for it. I was doing kids' church on an iPhone in a child's bedroom, and trying to teach a Bible lesson that way, or meeting on Zoom with 8 and 9-year-olds. So in those ways, we just saw the Lord really move in the sense that because it was online, it allowed Lithuanians to experience and find God in a way that they didn't have to be seen by others. So it was a very personal way for them to like explore and figure out what this was, who we were, who God was, in a very private setting. And so we found that even though COVID happened and, it didn't look like we were expecting, the Lord was still moving in that and actually using that, especially for our Lithuanians. And so when we came out of COVID, obviously that's when the church really started to grow, because people were able to start coming together again. And they had kind of already done that, like, okay, do I really agree with them? Would I actually go in person kind of situation? So it was really cool to see the Lord work in that as well. And then obviously from then we've had so many different rounds of randomness of growth or decrease or we had to move from one building to the other because our rent was up in one building, and so we had to renovate a whole other building, and so you lose people in the midst of that. But just seeing the Lord move in those things and seeing him become real to so many people, and a lot of people, and especially young people, allowing him to really speak to them and really use them. And so they're searching and they're diving into a deep and truly rooted relationship with Jesus, which is so fun to see now that I've been here, for 8 years. And so it's really exciting.
That's so cool. Well, now you said that you work with, 0 to 35. And it sounds like before maybe it was a little bit more focused on kids. But I'm still curious, what are the things that you have noticed working in ministry, working both in the context of the United States and Lithuania? What are the things that really cross cultures when it comes to even just connecting with that next gen age group? And then more specifically, when it comes to sharing the gospel or being able to disciple people or making those deeper connections that create opportunities to have conversations about God or what walking with the Lord looks like. So what I've come to realize is kids are kids everywhere.
So teenagers are teenagers everywhere, and young adults are young adults everywhere.
Okay.
All of them are really going through similar life changes
Sure.
in the sense that they are experiencing change. They're experiencing new culture when they go to university.
Yeah.
They're experiencing becoming an adult.
Yep.
They're experiencing the fact that they are no longer reliant on their parents' beliefs and understandings, that they have to decide that for themselves.
Yeah.
And so for who I work with, I've really realized that they are very similar in ways that you would disciple or you would speak with them. I think that sometimes more so with our Lithuanians, they're a bit more chill than maybe our American youth groups.
Yeah.
Not to say that they don't get crazy, because they do, they're teenagers. But maybe eating some of the weird stuff or doing some fun games looks different in that context, right? But really, truly, in the sense though, that they really are the same when it comes to discipleship and teaching them who Jesus is and how to develop a relationship with him and how to decide that for yourself. It's very similar. I will say what I have noticed though is that to an extent they're a little bit ahead in maturity, because in Lithuanian culture it is still a very secure and safe culture. And so students are taking themselves to school by age 7. They're getting on the public bus by themselves they know which stops to get off at. They go to the mall to meet their friends or to the park in the summer. And so they're very independent in that way. And so I think for them, that maybe is why the fun, weird things that we sometimes as Americans do in our youth groups don't work, because they have a little bit more of that maturity. But again, it's, they're the same everywhere. And so it's been fun to just see conversations happen and their thoughts and their questions be very similar, because honestly too is all of that next gen, they're watching all of the social media, all of the Netflix, all the things from America, so they're learning a lot. And so so I would say it's pretty similar, actually.
Sure. I kind of want to go back to something that you touched on a couple different times, both when you were talking about kind of the start of your own, I don't know, I guess just maybe like understanding or opening up of your mind to, what it looked like in other countries, the access to the gospel, the understanding about Jesus, the availability of churches or the Bible. When you went on your first missions trip, and then also you had brought up when you guys have teams that come and work with you and how you guys talk about living missionally. Do you have any stories? Maybe it's your own story. Maybe it's a story of somebody that worked with you on a trip. But do you have any stories, specifics that you can share with us of transformation or revelation that took place kind of because of being able to engage in just a short term, just a small opportunity to go outside of your own culture and to be in an environment where you really just have a different perspective and a different drive when you're on a trip to even make connections with people, introduce yourself to people, share the gospel, pray for people. So can you share any kind of specific stories that come to mind when I talk about all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Out of the 6 missionaries that are on the field right now, 3 of us were called to be a missionary on the field while we were on a short-term trip.
Wow.
So we'll start there.
Yes.
But one in particular I can think of, her name is Magnolia. We call her Maggie. She came to Lithuania on a short-term trip. She was meant to be there for 10 days. Okay. We did a kids camp. We were doing evangelism. We went to like a women's home that for abused women or people that were abusing alcohol, drugs, those things. And so she got to experience a lot of Lithuanian culture. She got to see really the need of why we need churches in Lithuania, why Lithuanians need to know the Lord, why they're so high on the scale of suicide and depression. They're one of the top in the world. And so for her to see that in person was so eye-opening to her, because she knew some of those things when she was in the States, obviously. But when she came to Lithuania, it was really eye-opening for her because it was out of her normal context. It was out of her normal daily routine. It was people she didn't know. It was a language she didn't speak. It was food that tasted different. And so she really experienced that. And now I get to call her my coworker because she's now a missionary serving with me in Lithuania. So cool. It's one of those things that the Lord speaks to people when you're on a short-term trip. And I know sometimes the short-term trips are for a lot of times it's for our people that are coming on those trips, because it allows us to open our hearts to hear what the Lord really wants to speak to us, because we're out of our normal routine, you know. And I think that that's one of those things why it's so impactful. I know that's specifically why it was impactful for me, because it was just eye-opening to like, oh, I didn't even realize that this was a need. I mean, I did theoretically because of the missionaries that came and shared one Sunday for an hour. But it was like that direct in your face contact with it. And you're like, wow, no, they need Jesus. And guess what? He's maybe he's asking me to be a part of that solution. And so, so she'd be the one story, I think, always.
Absolutely. That's so cool. So thinking about, again, that this concept of living missionally, and I love the story that you shared about the teachers and how it can be so simple. You know, I think sometimes it seems daunting, or it seems, you know, like, I don't know, there can be some fear involved of like, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to do that. But the simplicity of, you know, I am just going to, you know, live out my faith publicly. And those opportunities a lot of times present themselves. But even thinking about, you know, how this looks like, or has looked like specifically with you, like what are some things that you are intentional about when you are forming relationships, when you're sustaining relationships? What are like what do opportunities tend to kind of look like? Or, you know, I know sometimes it's you can kind of get hesitant or think, you know, okay, should I go do this thing? Was that God? You know, all of those like thoughts that run through your head. So can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just being intentional with meeting people. You're not going to be able to do that from your living room couch. You know, it's one of those things that you have to go out your door and be bold to do. And so it's really being intentional about meeting people where they are, and going to them and meeting them for coffee and just seeing how life is going. And it doesn't have to be, like you said, an overly religious conversation. It could just be, let me invest in you a little bit. You know, let me build this relationship, because for Lithuanians, it takes forever for a Lithuanian to be comfortable with you, truly, because they are so closed off and personal. And so they don't even meet in their homes. They meet their friends out at anywhere else, at restaurants or bars or coffee shops or the park, because even bringing them into their homes is too personal. And so it's really being intentional with like relational building first. And so, hey, let's go. It's beautiful outside. It's still sunny at 11 p.m. because it's the summer. Let's go on a bike ride together and let's talk, you know, and asking those kinds of questions. How was your week? How are things going? What do you think about this? And so I think that that's something that I have specifically been trying to be more intentional about and growing in, because I realized that is a part of discipleship, really. If the people are going to share with you really deep things, you have to know them. You have to be able to, they have to know you to be comfortable enough to share those things also. And so that's something that I've in particular have been really intentional about, is going and meeting with them and getting to know them and those kinds of things. Hosting a life group at my home to give them a safe space to answer or ask questions that they feel comfortable asking here at home, even though that's different and a foreign concept for them. but it has been really, it's been really cool to see how God has used that and worked in that as well. So yeah.
You've talked a little bit about just some different things with the Lithuanian culture that is a little bit different maybe than American culture, whether it is being a little more individualistic or maybe like a higher level of independence at a younger age. Can you speak more to some of those other cultural differences, and then what the transition looked like for you, living, not just going on a short-term trip, not just going on a vacation, but transplanting yourself where, this is your new home, and this is your new context.
Yeah, I think, you obviously, when you move to a new country, you really see the differences. So I think that something that always helped was to find the things that are similar. And so a lot of times we will focus on those because there are a lot of differences. Lithuanians, like I said, are very individualistic. They're very closed off. It takes a really long time to get to know them personally. I come from a culture where you smile at everyone or give the wave, That is not a thing in Lithuania, or in Eastern Europe anyway. You wouldn't walk on the street and smile at someone. And so for me, initially that was also very challenging because I thought people hated me and I was invading their space. And no, that's not what it was. It was just very I'm reserved, calm, collected. I'm going to keep it together in front of you. I'm not going to show emotion and those kinds of things. And not to say that was a bad thing, either. So Lithuanians are also very direct. And so they're going to tell you how it is. They're not going to lie to your face. They're not going to skirt around it. They are going to directly tell you their thoughts and what they think. And sometimes it hurts, but you also know that actually for them, it comes out of a place of love and care, because they aren't lying to you. And they're wanting to tell you and wanting to know you to know that truth. And so it's been interesting to experience that. And so I think that knowing those things, especially spending time this long now, I've come to realize that I have also become maybe a more reserved in general person. I'm still very loud and obnoxious for them. I'm still very American to them to an extent. But I think that plays a part in it. It allows you to, kind of connect with them in a different way. I do think also that it's really important to not be yourself. You need to be yourself. And so even though I may be a little bit louder, or I do things like invite people into my home, I'm not going to stop those things because that's who I am and that's who the Lord's made me. And it also helps them change their thinking on those things. And so they're like, oh, this is actually really wonderful. This isn't just an American thing. This is a Jesus culture kind of thing.
That's good. I like
it's
that.
not just a cultural thing, it's like she's living like Jesus. And so I think that it's easy again to see those differences, but really focusing on okay, so what about myself is it's just Jesus, and I'm not going to change that. I might be a little bit more aware when I'm in a group of Lithuanians to not be overly loud and obnoxious, intentionally. But I also am going to be myself, and I'm going to smile, and I'm going to be kind and caring, and on those ways. And so, so I think that. It definitely changes you in different ways, especially when you're living in such a different culture for so long. You do become a little bit of a different person to an extent. So,
for sure. So my next question, potentially the most unexpected thing that maybe happened was COVID, obviously. So aside from that, what has been something that just was very, very unexpected, when you were initially kind of doing your training and your preparation to go over to Lithuania, and then over the course, whether it was something like an immediate thing that you were not expecting, or whether it's something that, over the course of time you look back and you're like, wow, like this thing has just been very different than what I was prepared for.
Yeah. So I think culture shock, you expect it to an extent because you're trained to know that it's going to happen. Right. You're like living in a different culture, right? Yeah. The thing is I don't think anyone will ever prepare you for the culture shock that happens 3 months after you've moved, or 6 months after you've moved, or 3 years into you moving, and suddenly you're like, wait, what is going on? Why am I so emotional? Oh, okay, this might be a little culture shock. Yeah. That was something that was really unexpected. I think something that for me personally was really unexpected, because I have now, since I've been there for 8 years, I've had a couple of times that I've been stateside to itinerate, to fundraise and raise prayer partners and those kinds of things. What was really unexpected for me was coming home and then going back the second time. Because I had left the church that we had planted. I had left COVID and all those things to come fundraise, was home for 2 years to do that. And then I go back to a completely different church. Sure. Like, it was completely different. So my community was different. Again, I was reminded of language again. I was reminded of all those things. And so that for me was something that was very unexpected, in the sense that, like literally every time you go back to the field, something is going to be different and has changed. And not in a bad way, but it's just going to be one of those things that I wasn't necessarily expecting to be so different. And so it was really exciting to see that and experience the growth, because I had come back to the States in 2021. And so we were in Lithuania still pretty under some pretty heavy rules with COVID and things. And so it was still like a very small community, very small church. And then I come back to a group of like 65, people at church on Sunday. And I'm like, what is happening? This is so cool. The Lord's doing so many amazing things, And so I think that was something that was really unexpected for me, was that, the life keeps going when you're not there. Right. And so that's exciting in a sense that, oh, cool, it kept going while I wasn't there. Wonderful. And kept growing while I wasn't there. And to see the Lord just work in that was really incredible and unexpected for me, I think. That
makes a lot of sense. What is something that since you've started ministry, that either your passion has really grown in that area, because I know you're kind of doing some things that are similar to what you would have been doing before you went on the field, or a new passion that has emerged as you've been doing ministry?
I think it's a combination of two, because I think discipleship has been something that we've really, as a team, been like, wow, we really want to dive into this. And what does discipleship really, truly mean? It's not just pastoring people. It's really helping them disciple the next person. And how are we equipping people to do that? How are we helping them? How are we journeying alongside them and teaching them how to do that? And so that has been something that has been a new passion that's developed, in the sense that it's fun to be able to do that with not only children, but also adults. And so building relationship with adults and really training them and teaching them on, okay, what does discipleship look like? Okay, what do we do next? How do you tell the next person about Jesus? How do you do that naturally in a conversation? How, all of those kinds of things. And so that's something that's really grown. And because of that, it's also like a leadership training. So when we obviously first started to the church, I come in as their next gen person, as their kids pastor, as, that kind of thing. And just last month, before I moved here back to the States for itineration, I had to pass this ministry off to someone else. And so it's been fun to disciple and train the next leader to be able to do these things, even when they don't necessarily feel like they're ready.
Sure.
Always, none of us do, right?
Yeah.
But that's been something that's really the Lord's developing in me and wanting me to grow in, I think, and learn more about and learn how to do better. Is to be a better disciple of Him, and helping them train the next person to train the next person, and find your Timothys, and train the next person, because eventually there will be one day, I would imagine, that I will no longer be in Lithuania. And if I'm no longer in Lithuania, will the church sustain itself? Will the church keep growing? Will people still be able to disciple other people? And so that's my desire in my heart, is not just to be the person that is in charge and is directing and leading kids ministry, but it's, okay, who have I passed on those skills to, and who are they passing their skills on to, and continuing on that journey. So so that's something for sure that the Lord's developing.
And so in your role, are you over like kids ministry and youth ministry and young adults? Is that kind of what it looks like? Yeah.
So initially, yes. Thankfully, no longer. So it's a lot. Initially, I was kind of overseeing the developing of those. I was being more of like the point person for youth and young adults. I was for sure like kids pastor. And so it was kind of like a combination of those things. Now we have people kind of doing all of those things, or leading those things, and still being trained to how to do things and developing things and those kinds of things. So
so that definitely in itself lends itself to what you were just talking about with instilling leadership and teaching people how to really have vision for something and to run with it. But what would you say, because still, I mean, you're pouring into people that are leading various ministries and types of ministries. So what are kind of the common threads, the core things that when you are doing this leadership development or training, what are those core things that kind of, no matter what type of ministry or age group that they're working with, that you really try to instill?
First and foremost, a relationship with Jesus. You can do none of that outside of Him. You could do that to an extent, but it will never become what you dream it to be if you are doing it on your own strength. And so that is the first and foremost thing that I make sure that they understand and know, is that they need to have a relationship with the Lord. Another one, obviously, is then being able to listen to His voice. So if you know Him, you'll be able to hear His word and His guidance and all of those kinds of things. Because when you are in a leadership position, you will have those moments where you are going to need His voice, because there are going to be challenges and things that you think you can figure out and you can't. And so that is definitely, those are the for sure ones that I make sure to train with new leaders, as well as just carrying vision. We want to be all on the same page. And so if our vision for Journey Kids is to making it easy for kids to find and experience God, are we all on the same page with that? Are we all going in the same direction with that? And I think the other thing is that you are never alone when you are in leadership. There is always somebody there to ask for help with. There is always someone there to delegate to. There is always someone there that is going to partner with you because you are bringing them alongside you, and you want to use their strengths. And so that's also something that we train, is to use your strengths. The Lord has given each and every one of us different strengths and different talents. And to be open-minded on how He wants to use those strengths. Because sometimes He uses our strengths in ways that we could never have imagined to be used. I was having a conversation just today, actually, with our Journey Kids director, currently, who happens to be the woman that was the teacher years ago.
Oh, cool. Wow.
But so that's the fun part of the story, yes. Right? But we were having that conversation of, listen, you are not doing this. You are delegating with other people. You are working and partnering with other people and finding people to fill roles that don't necessarily feel like they're supposed to talk with kids. All right, well, what does that mean? Oh, well, guess what? If you can say good morning to someone, you could be a greeter in kids' church. Right. You don't have to work with the children directly, but you're going to be greeting and making these families feel welcome when they come in and feel Jesus, when they come in the door of kids ministry, right? Yep. And so I think sometimes we put ourselves in boxes with our gifts and our talents, and sometimes the Lord's like, no. Think outside the box. There are other things I have for you. And so that's something I always like to teach our leaders as well, is really think of other people's strengths and make sure that you're utilizing their strengths and finding them a place where their strengths will be used. Because sometimes also in leadership, people will come and volunteer for a certain area, and you find out that maybe they're not the best fit for that area. Sure. And so you still want to help them find what the Lord is asking them to do. And so finding them a place where their strengths are used for the Lord is always really important for our leaders.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you are currently kind of in that place that you mentioned before, where you're back in the United States, you're itinerating, and so you'll be going back in a little while to something where you have an idea of what it's going to look like, but it might be different than what you left. It might be different. Yeah. But keeping all of that in mind, what are some things that, as you are, praying about and anticipating, and just thinking about, what are things that you are excited about going back to Lithuania, or what are the goals that you have, or the things that you just really feel are in store for this next season as you go back?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. So this last year, our team did a weekend together, our lead team, where we intentionally revisited mission and vision and all those kinds of things. Yeah. And then we sat down and began to write out a really strategic 6-month plan. And then you basically revisit that 6-month plan and you choose different things. Yeah. But our vision that we came up with and prayed about and spent a lot of time in prayer about and asking the Lord about was, we want to make it easy for 10,000 people to find and experience God through 7 multiplying churches that we plant throughout Lithuania by 2035. Okay. And so we're wanting in the next 9 years, because we started this in July last year. So in July, that means we'll have 9 years left. We want to plant 7 other churches. Yeah. And so what that means for us as a leadership team, it could be one of 2 things. There is one option where we will take a team and we will be the leader of a church plant, and we'll take a team and we'll go to a different city and we'll plant a church, and we'll be there for the start of it, and then we'll eventually go to the next church plant and leave that team there, all those things. The other option is that we stay in our Vilnius campus, and we became basically like the training hub of those campuses. So we would be in Vilnius. I would be training people how to do kids ministry, and then when it's time to plant a church, that team will be sent to that village. And so it could be a combination of things, but it's so exciting to see what the Lord might have in store for that, because I think that he's ready, and he is wanting to be in places outside of just Vilnius. He wants to be in the villages throughout Lithuania. He's going to have to help us with some of the logistics of how that looks, because when I mean villages, I mean villages. And so there aren't necessarily places for internationals to rent places. It will probably have to be Lithuanians. And so I'm just super looking forward to see what God's going to do and what leaders he brings up. And the fact that I get to be a part of that is just so exciting and humbling at the same time that, it's super something. So I'm super looking forward to see what he's going to do when I get back. So who knows though at this point, but he does for sure. He has all those details already figured out. So Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time just to talk with us a little bit about your journey in ministry and the ways that God has used you and taught you. And we just are so excited to be able to continue along this journey with you, that we will be able to find out what happens next when you go back, just through our continued partnership and reading newsletters and things like that. And so we're just so appreciative of being able to support you and partner with you, and to kind of all be in this together with just this commission of spreading the name of Jesus throughout the ends of the earth and expanding his kingdom. So thank you again so much, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again.